Every single time we step out our front doors, we enter into this massive, intricate, totally shared ecosystem. We call it the road. And just like any natural environment out there in the wild, for it to function smoothly and safely, every single participant has a specific part to play. It's like a giant puzzle where we're all absolutely crucial pieces.
So that brings up a really great question. Who is actually responsible for road safety? I mean, really think about that for a second. Put yourself in that exact scenario, when there's a close call at a busy intersection or traffic is just a chaotic mess. Man, it is so incredibly easy to point the finger at someone else, isn't it? We naturally want to blame that aggressive driver or the pedestrian which just darted out of nowhere or the cyclist weaving through cars. But looking at the source material, the fundamental truth is that the responsibility doesn't just fall on one specific group. No way. That responsibility belongs to every single one of us who enters that shared space.
To really get a handle on our roles, we first need to define what we're actually aiming for here. The source gives us a very clear definition. It says road safety refers to the methods and steps taken to reduce the danger of a person using the road being killed or injured. Notice those last few words, killed or injured. We aren't just talking about avoiding a scratch on your bumper or making sure you aren't late for work. The stakes here are absolutely crucial. These methods and steps, they're literal lifesavers. This entire concept is completely about human lives and protecting each other from very real physical danger.
Now, what's really interesting about this slotted is how literally everyone on the road falls into one of four distinct groups. First up, we have pedestrians, which the text simply defines as people who are walking. Then we have cyclists, people riding bicycles. Next are motorists, the people actually driving the cars. And finally, passengers, the folks traveling inside those vehicles. Notice how broad the whole shebang is. Literally everyone fits into at least one of these four categories on any given day. You might be a motorist on your morning commute, a pedestrian when you walk to grab a coffee at lunch, and then a passenger getting a ride home with a friend later on. Because we all shift so fluidly between these roles, understanding the specific rules for each category is fundamental to making this whole system work.
Let's zoom in a bit and look at the pedestrian's path. When you're out there on foot, sure, you're incredibly agile, but you're also by far the most physically vulnerable participant in this road ecosystem. And that is exactly why the rules here are so incredibly vital for your own safety, especially when you're navigating busy, congested environments. This brings us to a very precise sequence you absolutely must follow, specifically when you're trying to cross a busy road in the city. Step 1. Always aim to use a zebra crossing or a pedestrian bridge. This is dedicated infrastructure perfectly designed to give you the right of way and a safe path. But okay, what if that infrastructure just isn't there? Well, that's when step 2 becomes absolutely critical. Where there's no zebra crossing or bridge, you must carefully watch the vehicles coming from both sides of the road. You simply cannot assume a driver sees you. And finally, step 3, only cross when it is completely safe. It seems remarkably simple, right? But adhering strictly to these exact steps is exactly how pedestrians successfully mitigate the severe dangers of a bustling city street.
And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates the difference between active awareness and dangerous distractions. The source material is remarkably strict on this point. It clearly states that no one should use a phone or read a newspaper while crossing a road. Whether it's an analog distraction like an open newspaper or a digital one like scrolling on a smartphone, the result is exactly the same. Your eyes and your cognitive attention are completely off the road. Active awareness, carefully watching vehicles, is your primary defense mechanism. When you surrender that awareness just to read a text message, you're breaking a fundamental safety rule and putting yourself in immediate, totally unnecessary danger. Let's move to the driver's duty and see how this builds. Because if pedestrians are the most vulnerable out there, motorists absolutely carry the heaviest burden of responsibility. Think about it. You're operating a heavy, fast-moving machine. The potential to cause massive harm is immense, which is exactly why drivers have to follow a really strict set of road traffic safety rules. Before a driver even puts the key in the ignition, there are these absolute prerequisites they must meet. First off, the legal preparation. You must always take your driver's license and other car documents with you when you drive. That just establishes that you're legally permitted and qualified to be behind the wheel. But the next 3 points, they're all about the driver's physical and mental state of mind. A driver should not drink alcohol before or while driving. They shouldn't drive under the influence of drugs, and critically, they absolutely should not drive when they're tired. Alcohol, drugs, and fatigue all severely impair your reaction time and your judgment. Operating a vehicle requires peak cognitive function, so compromising that is a direct violation of road safety.
So the crucial point is how you actually behave once the car is moving. These are active, real-time choices. A driver must constantly obey all traffic signals, lights, and signs. Really, these are the communication tools of our shared ecosystem, telling everyone what to expect next. Also, if you want to change lanes, you've got to use your car's indicators or your hand to signal your intent to others. You're sharing the space, so you have to communicate your moves. Furthermore, a driver should not speed, and they shouldn't overload the vehicle, since both of those actions drastically reduce your ability to safely control the car in an emergency. And of course, a driver should always use the seatbelt in their car. It's a totally non-negotiable layer of personal protection.
I really want to isolate this next rule because it's just so incredibly prevalent today. A driver should never use a phone while driving. Just like we saw with pedestrians crossing the street, distracted driving is utterly catastrophic. When a motorist looks down at a screen, they're essentially piloting a multi-ton object completely blindfolded. The source material presents absolutely no gray area or exceptions here. It's a hard and fast rule designed to keep everyone's eyes exactly where they need to be, firmly on the road.
However, look, life happens. There are genuine emergencies. So what actually happens if a driver absolutely must use their phone? Well, the source gives us a highly specific 3-step protocol to completely eliminate the risk to others. First, you must move aside. You have to get the vehicle completely out of the active flow of traffic. Second, park the car safely. The vehicle must be totally stationary and secure. Only then, in step 3, can you actually use the phone. By forcing the vehicle completely out of the equation before the distraction even begins, the driver maintains the integrity and safety of the entire road ecosystem.
Which brings us to a final, pretty provocative thought. What steps will you take today to ensure everyone gets home safely? We've seen from the text that road safety isn't some accident. It's a conscious, active, and continuous process. Whether you're walking on the pavement as a pedestrian, pedaling as a cyclist, riding along as a passenger, or getting behind the wheel as a motorist, you hold a vital piece of this puzzle. The methods and steps are incredibly clear. No phones while crossing or driving. Obey the signs. Stay sober and alert. Check both sides of the road. Ultimately, the rules are there to protect human lives. So the next time you step out into that shared ecosystem, I challenge you to keep these exact protocols in mind. Because, you know what? Your awareness just might be the very thing that saves a life today.